Urgent. Bitcoin about to break all-time high. I read my title and I went and looked at the price and got really excited. But Bitcoin is still at around 66,000. It's not yet breaking the all-time high, but a hell of a lot of people think that it's going to in the coming month or two. I happen to be one of them, and I have a feeling today's guest, Andrew Parish, aka AP_abacus on Twitter from Arch Public, thinks exactly the same. We're going to tell you why people are looking for that new all-time high soon and why we are optimistic on the price of Bitcoin. And we'll probably talk about a whole lot of other topics as well. Let's go.
Let's go.
What is up, everybody? I'm Scott Melker, also known as the Wolf of All Streets. Before we get started, please subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. Going to go ahead and bring on Andrew. Urgent. It's all happening now.
Well, listen, the price action has been awesome over the last couple of days and still is here today. And we are in October. I know that there were many a folk that found it funny to talk about Downtober or some other version of not October in the first week of October. But true to form, there's more than 4 or 5 days in October. And we're seeing that. Yeah.
You're bringing the alpha here, the things that our viewers don't know.
You know, it's crazy. People look at calendars and they have a hard time discerning Bitcoin price associated with a calendar. And so the follow through on the halving, the follow through on, sell in May and go away. And then volume comes back in mid to late September. And here we are in October. And, BlackRock not only is giving all kinds of presentations, but they're even talking about Bitcoin on their earnings calls. Larry Fink talking about it. There was, commentary yesterday from him associated with, where can Bitcoin go? Where can quote unquote digital assets and crypto go? He made a passing reference to, well, this is in the same way that we saw the mortgage market grow. And by the way, when he's talking about the mortgage market, he's not talking about just hard assets associated with houses that has existed for forever. He's talking about the financialization of mortgages and what that turned into. And so look a couple levels deep when he talks about these things. It's not just the hard asset value, it's the financialization of that hard asset. And so that's where Larry's head is at, is that it's not just Bitcoin is going to be worth X amount in the aggregate. It's the fact that there's, again, IBIT was the first to have options approved on it. We now have custody associated with big traditional banks associated with Bitcoin and Ethereum. These things are going to turn into layers upon layers in the same way that mortgages and the hard asset behind mortgages turn into layers upon layers. So, October is back on, but there's a reason why people. There's a rhythm to financial services and wealth management that exists in the real world, and that rhythm is nobody is taking a meaningful quarterly review of their portfolio in August with their financial advisor. Nobody's doing that. People are doing that in late September, early October. So if that's happening, and people have heard about Larry Fink talking about Bitcoin for forever. Over the past 6 to 9 months, they're going to ask questions about it in that review session. And what ends up happening? Well, you get a day like yesterday where there's more than 500 million in inflows into Bitcoin ETFs and a little over 100 million in inflows into BlackRock's product in and of itself. So, these things, that's the biggest inflow number, by the way, since I think June 3rd. That's a big number.
June 3rd, 1492.
So
ever.
that's a big number for inflows. And again, you can go to additional layers of that. So you go to the next layer and you say to yourself, and the Bloomberg guys did a nice job of this. We're now at, let's call it nearly or at 20 billion in net inflows, right? So for the asset class. And so the asset class is, let's call it 9 months old at this point. I remember, being on spaces with you and others, when we were at the point of launch with these products, and people that were mega bullish, like absurdly bullish, were in the 5 to 10 billion range in the first year for these products.
Yep.
This is, we are four, at 2 times at 10 billion and 4 times at 5 billion, that level. And we haven't even finished out a first year. So get back to me in the middle of January of next year and see what that number is. My guess is that we'll be at 25, maybe even 30 billion at that point. So this is as successful an asset class launch as we've seen in the ETF space, in the financial space, in a long, long time. And I know that we live in this bubble that is, crypto Twitter, and there are times where even in the crypto Twitter space, people get bored with talking about Bitcoin, but just pull back just a little bit and realize that what other asset class over the past decade has moved this way through the traditional rails of finance this fast? Nothing has.
It's wild.
When you make a joke or two about October, be careful what you wish for. There are powerful forces at work here associated with movement into these.
A quick look here at the this is on the TIE terminal, but it's an ETF terminal. I mean, 58 billion now in total market cap. Grayscale down to 14, and BlackRock's at 24. Remember, we were not long ago, I was saying this is going to be the real flippening. I mean, it's left it so far in the dust. It's a joke. Fidelity is 11.85. It's going to pass Grayscale imminently as well. And you got, even, we got 2.7 billion in Bitwise. They did over 100 million yesterday, Hunter told me. 3.2 on ARC. I mean, these are all big ETFs. Valkyrie's not there now, hashed because that's CoinShares, but a few of these kind of failed. But even at the very bottom end, 459 million, Franklin Templeton, that's nothing to sneeze at.
No, and Franklin Templeton, you want to talk about a boomer company. These are people, Franklin Templeton investors still have a bunch of money in mutual funds, much less ETFs. So that number, that total number that you just showed, almost 60 billion, just in ETFs, that's a remarkable number. Another stat that came up this morning, I think, is that the ETFs in totality are getting very, very close to both to the Satoshi number of total total Bitcoin in their coffers, so to speak. You could also make the case that BlackRock is making a push. I think they're number 3 at this point in totality of Bitcoin that they have under their quote unquote custody. Those are big numbers. Now, I had a conversation yesterday with Caitlin Long via DM, talking about BlackRock's position with Bitcoin in total, and we agreed short and medium term that BlackRock's involvement is obviously extremely bullish for price, right? Extremely bullish for price. That there's clearly a floor associated with Bitcoin price that's very, very different than what we saw in previous moves and previous cycles. But her long-term concern with BlackRock's involvement in the scale of owning that much Bitcoin, goes to her thoughts regarding governmental control, the Fed, money. There are some longer term issues that Caitlin probably could speak to that are of interest. I've said for a long time that the Bitcoin ETFs, again, short and medium term, and let's call that 12 to 36 months are, wildly bullish for Bitcoin as an asset. You go out 4 to 5 years, and where are we at with that? What is there a world where, self-custody Bitcoin is quote unquote more valuable or worth more than the Bitcoin that sits inside of ETFs? Interesting thought process and way to think about it. But as it stands here today, we're about to crest 66 again. There's just such a difference between the way that Bitcoin acts, say, 3 years ago when Binance was at the helm, right? You get movements like yesterday where you've got some real significant green candles, and then overnight, basically almost nothing happens, right? Almost nothing happens overnight.
It's literally
Bitcoin
during
now.
trading hours. Yeah.
It's during trading hours. You can look at longer term charts over the last, let's call it 2 months, and the spikes in volume look like, somebody's pushing buttons at the New York Stock Exchange, at the open and near the close. That's not a bad thing. As it relates to the fact that you're not going to get, there's no version of an 80% pullback that exists really anymore, at least not in my estimation. But at the same time, it adjusts the way that Bitcoin trades, and it's just it to me it continues to be look at that.
I just wanted to show this title in context of what we're talking about with Larry Fink. I mean, digitizing the dollar. BlackRock CEO reveals his radical plan for AI-powered crypto that's predicted to blow up the price of Bitcoin. I mean, so obviously, as you and I were talking about before the show, I mean, he sounds like Satoshi when he talks about it. I'm not saying you can define whether his intentions are good or bad, whether it's regurgitating the white paper, but there's clearly been an evolution, at least in his narrative. But he even recently said Ethereum is wildly underpriced, and now is talking about AI-powered digitized dollars on Ethereum. And this guy is not just saying buy and hold Bitcoin. He's saying BlackRock's going to lead the world in changing the entire financial system with tokenization. That's what he's saying, and he said it in their letters. And it's Larry Fink, man.
It's turned into BlackRock as a crypto company. And that is it's
MicroStrategy-esque. Yes.
Yeah, it's very hard to fathom. And I'm got a guy long in traditional finance. Even to me, I listen to what he's saying, and I'm thinking, holy smokes, man, what does this mean for the next 36 months associated with BlackRock and these assets? And it can't be anything other than just wildly bullish. So the spaces yesterday, there was, some talk about, L1s, L2s, and just overall, the space is just so crowded right now. There's so many versions of these things, right? And it harkens back to different levels of history. At one point there were, 245 car companies back in like 1932 or something, right? And then there were 4 or 5 or whatever the number is now that are of interest. I think we're going to go through that process, but in the same way, the quote unquote internet bubble, right? When the internet bubble happened in 99 through 2001, and there were just crazy amounts of commercials about stuff that if you were to play them now, people are like, that's crazy. Like, there's a sock puppet that's a dog. What is this company? Pets.com, right? But the winners that came out of those cycles are literally the biggest companies in the world now. Yep. So there will be a version of that in crypto, that the winners of that particular cycle, and one could make the case that some of those winners will be chosen by a guy who's saying, we're going to lead crypto. And oh, by the way, we've got $11.5 trillion in assets that we control to do that. They're going to be just, hugely successful. So things like, Bitcoin at 150K or Ethereum at 10K, while those aren't, imminent short-term, turns that we're going to see over a period of 3 years, that's a real thing, right? If you're BlackRock and Citadel, and you're creating an entirely new stock market in Texas, and you have to have something that stock market and those tokenized real world assets are going to run on, whatever is chosen there, and it seems to be Ethereum. At some point, that value will accrue in the price of that asset. So it's it's really something to be in this spot where you're looking at, BlackRock give presentations to family offices or over in Europe or whatever it happens to be, and they're talking about the reduction in the value of the dollar as a reason to own Bitcoin and crypto. Like, what in the world? Like, is this? Did they hire Jack Mullers? Like, what are we talking about here?
No, they hired Robbie Mitchnick, and he's the one who gets it and is in Larry's ear, and Orange pilled him in the first place. But there's a lot of reasons that people are sort of pointing to that we could get to this all-time high. Obviously, we showed this article. We're seeing these massive inflows, to your point. There's a lot of technical indicators, and then there's also even predictive markets. So this is Kalshi, which obviously also now has legal presidential election betting. But 46% saying that at some point this year, Bitcoin will go above 75, 30% saying above 80, 16% saying above 90. So predictive markets in aggregate, obviously very, very bullish. Then you have the fact that finally we're actually seeing some action in the leverage side again. Whether good or bad, that people are starting to bet on higher prices when you start to see funding rates start to rise and you start to see open interest start to rise, and that has been dead. This has all been spot driven by the ETFs for quite a while here. And then even, now these narratives again, Bitcoin strength driven by correlation to rising Trump election odds, MicroStrategy going up, leading the way. These are all massively bullish narratives pretty much. And then of course we have Kamala Harris saying that Bitcoin's for black people and they're going to get special rules. I can't, I don't know. Honestly, I read it and I read the headline 17 times and then I looked at it and actually people are freaking out, but it's not exactly what she said. Not that I'm trying to defend, but she kind of said she was speaking to that audience. So put it in context of them, but she did say generally she would put a regulatory framework in place that made sense for crypto. And that would benefit the 20% of black people that hold it. But man, they need to work on the talking points and the way that they release this stuff, because it just sounds like. It sounded like, the way the media is portraying it, whether true or not, is like, hey, you white guys, you don't get a regulatory framework, but the black people do. But I can't even imagine the clips that'll come out of this. But I'm just
how are you gonna? How would you create a regulatory framework? Just
don't worry about it, Andrew. It's an election problem. But and then you take a look, and Trump now 56. It was 53.8, I think, yesterday. Right now, 56%, and so Bitcoin, nothing but tailwinds here. I keep saying it. Trump wins. We start talking about protecting self-custody, banning of CBDCs. Global strategic reserve asset on the U.S. balance sheet. And if Harris wins, we start talking about unlimited spending, although Trump will do that too. But maybe there'll be less weights when he does it. Unlimited spending, irresponsible government. Both of those narratives to me are good for Bitcoin. We've talked about this endlessly. Not maybe good for everything else, but definitely good for Bitcoin. The odds just continue to go up here on the betting markets that Trump is gonna win this.
There is a the difference in probably not only the narrative associated with two campaigns, but also the understanding of the asset and the asset class. I wouldn't say either campaign are experts, but there's a material difference between the two, right? And just the messaging associated with yesterday. So I'll give you an example. Mike Dudas, who's fairly well known in the industry and started the block back in the day, and is a pretty reputable VC guy. He was, I've got screenshots from back in 2020, him wearing Joe Biden hats, and was serious about it, and was a big Biden fan and all those things. put out a tweet either this morning or whatever associated with the, Bitcoin / crypto for black men. And he's like, this is why I'm out on this. Like, this is so absurd that it doesn't, I mean, how do you sign on to this stuff? You can't. And, again, he is a Democrat. Like, I mean, he's been a Democrat since I've been around in 16, 17. And so those types of folks being out on, where one particular party is at or not, and they want really, really badly not to be out, but they keep sticking their proverbial foot in their mouths and, giving people reasons to exit and, vote for the guy who, for all intents and purposes, they think is objectionable. People ultimately vote their wallets. There's maybe a smidge less of that on a percentage basis these days because politics has become fairly emotional. But people generally, if you're above 30 years old, people generally will vote their wallets, and there's a market difference there. The other items that you mentioned as you rolled through, some of those different spots. I just think that you have the version of our space after, come mid-November to January, like you said, the difference between killing, at least in the short term, CBDCs, protecting self-custody, those are monumental issues associated with just general freedom, as opposed to even just, crypto talking points. And, removing the influence of an Elizabeth Warren and a Gary Gensler. We can look at just the actions that have been taken in the past 2 weeks. Every time that there's an action of some sort by the SEC, we think, well, maybe we're at a spot where things are going to slow down. Maybe they've hit a wall and they've lost this, or maybe they've lost that. You have to remember that in the aggregate, the SEC wins like 99% of their actions, whether it's by, people bend the knee and they settle, or when they do go to court, the SEC wins. That's the way that they see their world and their process, is that, one particular small loss in the world of crypto, and we can harken back to the appellate court decision as it was related to spot Bitcoin ETFs and Grayscale. That's nothing to the way that the current regime thinks about, the way that they handle matters of law, so to speak. I think maybe a week ago, maybe it was a week and a half ago, Gensler was giving another speech and he reverted back to fraudsters, scamsters, grifters. And, oh, by the way, like the people that were popular in 2022, like they're all in jail now. There's not an adjustment or a change in any way, shape, or form to the way that they look at the process. So if Harris wins, none of those people are being removed. The idea that Harris would win and then somehow kick out Gary Gensler from the SEC, that there's no way that's happening. So while you and I both believe that is still also a plus for Bitcoin, because I think there'll be a consolidation of assets as there's a pinch associated with, as the SEC likes to call them, crypto asset securities.
Digital crypto asset security. I mean, we can crypto asset, digital security,
always attaching the word securities to anything there. It at the same time, if we get a Trump move and a Trump win, again, the regulatory structures will be beaten back in a big way, and we'll see a run. I've said for a while that I think either or we're going to get to 80K by the end of the year. Every time that I say that, I get reply guys are like, why are you so bearish? I'm like, hello, bearish? What are you talking about? We've never been to 80K. Inflation adjusted.
Whatever, dude.
Nothing
goes up. You have to adjust everything for inflation.
Yeah. So
Nothing's ever gone up ever in history.
Yeah, it's and I think we're probably higher than that if we get a net positive result in the elections. Well, think about this: if we get what it looks like today, and again, anything can change in politics, but we're probably talking about a net Senate that's probably pro anti-regulation, pro crypto, so to speak. We get the same with the House. We get the same with the White House. That puts things, at least for a 2-year period, that gives a lot of room to run and a lot of opportunity in this industry. And I think most people are hopeful for that. And so beyond 80K, and we have now room to run from an anti-regulation standpoint, and we have Larry Fink telling the world that everything is going to be cryptoized. The moving higher is
trademark pending crypto.
Yeah, cryptoized.
Is that the same as laser eyes?
Yeah, right. So we're in a unique spot, and I come back to because we spent, whether it's 5 years or 7 years or 3 years or 2 years, however long somebody's been in this space, whether they're new or they're older, and they started with Bitcoin, because most people started with Bitcoin. They started with, okay, I've got $5,000, I'm going to put it into Bitcoin, or I've got $10,000, I'm going to put it to Bitcoin, and they're locked on one price, right? So, Arch Public plug incoming. We're releasing on November 18th a Bitcoin algorithm that is going to do some really unique things in taking $10,000 and being able to, even on the 4-hour or the 1 hour or the 30-minute chart, going to be able to find the lowest possible price inside of that time frame. Everybody has a product that will DCA on a daily basis, but we're bringing something to the masses that is the equivalent of putting a trade desk in your pocket. So you're going to be able to turn some levers and some knobs and be able to buy Bitcoin at $10 a piece or $15 at a time every 30 seconds if you want to. So instead of taking $10,000 and shoving it into Bitcoin at 65,867 right now, you can say, well, I want to spread that out over the next 30 days. And I want it to be spread out every 4 hours over the next 30 days. And that algorithm will calculate what that number is every 4 hours and hunt in that 4-hour candle for the best price for you. So it's a materially better process for buying Bitcoin. And from a performance standpoint, when you find yourself at the low end of every price point in that interval that you've decided, you are building in a performance advantage on your behalf.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically the benefit of dollar cost averaging passively, which every investor knows is the way you want to gain exposure to an asset, especially like this, but with actually the edge of trading to find slightly better prices, which compound massively over time.
Yeah, it's real intelligence in real time, and people are going to be, I try to not traffic in remarkable hyperbole, but I think people are going to be pretty impressed.
Have you looked at my title, bro?
Yeah,
looked at the
Bitcoin
title.
About to break.
If you're on YouTube, you're trafficking in exceptional. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Right. Well, at least you don't do those, those pins with your mouth wide open saying, oh, the
7,000x altcoin.
Yeah, there it is. Okay, there it is.
Right. I'm ready for it.
So, it's we've partnered with a great firm, and they're gonna launch in conjunction with us on November 18th, and just the partnership alone associated with their reputation and the way that they've handled their business over the last couple of years goes to show the kind of the value of this product and the commitment to Bitcoin from a philosophical standpoint. The other thing that needs to be said here is that we're so committed to this product and Bitcoin as an asset that in the first 90 days of this product, we're essentially going to be giving it away for free. So you're going to have access to this algo for the first 90 days for no cost.
Free crack.
Look at there. Yeah,
you got to give away a little free taste.
Yeah, just exactly right. Right.
Yes.
Exactly right. But it's that number there, that 19. that 1,966%, that's over a 4-year period. So clearly
So many
that,
percents.
yeah, that number, you know, the better part of probably 2/3 of that number is just the reality of Bitcoin as an asset. But the other third is using a tool to your advantage instead of what 90% of people have probably done, which I need to, I need to have some Bitcoin, so I'm just going to shove this amount of money into it. And so we've had lots of conversations with, high net worth, ultra high net worth people and some institutions associated with how do I scale in? How do I scale into Bitcoin? I know I want to build a position and I've got X amount of dollars after I sold this asset or that asset, this or that asset. How do I scale in? Where do I go to do that? And we're bringing that capability, that quote unquote trade desk capability, to the retail folks, and we're really excited about it. We are.
Yeah, it's gonna be amazing. You said something earlier about Elizabeth Warren, and I don't want to let this pass before we go back in. Deaton she's debating her tonight at 8:30,
awesome.
and you can live stream it here. You can give him money too. You should give him money.
Yeah.
But October 15th, last I checked, that's today. 11 hours from right now, you can click here. This is on John Deaton for Senate debate, but you can click here and you can watch him debate Elizabeth Warren. She's a good debater, right? People love her. She's a good public speaker. She does not back down from any debate, to her credit, unlike a lot of politicians who are just like, yeah, no, bro. But John's going to take his shots, and he's going to have to answer for a hell of a lot of things. So if you like watching Elizabeth Warren at least be slightly uncomfortable, this is your chance.
Well, John's one of us, right? Google, Goggle, one of us. And so the guy's been in the trenches in the space for a long time. I'm a huge fan of his. He does amazing stuff. Family man, the kind of guy that we would want in the U.S. Senate. Forget about crypto, but just from a character standpoint, and taking on what many would consider a scion of the Senate. Kudos to him. Support him in every way that you possibly can, not only with your eyeballs but with your wallet. So big John Deaton fan.
Yeah, it would be so amazing if he won.
Yeah, it would be really, really amazing if he won.
So good. So good.
Back to the Bitcoin algorithm too. We have a history of under promising and over delivering when it comes to performance in all of our other products at thearchpublic.com. Our customers are wildly happy about what we do with our other algorithms, and we're not a company that just has one algorithm. We have a ton of them. And so people come to us and they've gotten very, 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 very comfortable with the way that we handle liquidity and risk mitigation, and people in cash every day. It's a great product. The Bitcoin algorithm is going to be a great product, but we have a multiplicity of products. You can imagine that we're going to roll out of several marketing pieces that are going to be a version of use our fiat-based algorithms, generate return on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, move that return into the Bitcoin algorithm, and intelligently scale and build a stack of Bitcoin. The compounding on top of compounding. You want to talk about powerful asset gathering. That is going to be a really, really powerful tool. Internally, we've talked about, well, how do we communicate the numbers that are going to come out of that compounding upon compounding, because it sounds like just crazy world. It's Looney Tunes. So, we're working on that, but those numbers are just astronomical. If you get beyond a 2 or 3 year period associated with fiat-based returns and then turned into scaling into Bitcoin returns, that 1966 looks small compared to what the numbers turn into. So looking forward to it. It's going to be, it's going to be fantastic. The launch is going to be awesome.
You've been talking for a while, but this is what I heard when you said you had a multiplicity of products.
That is a great movie.
Have you guys seen Multiplicity? They just get dumber and dumber and dumber as they multiply until they're basically like amoebas.
Yeah, like the fifth
Yeah.
one is like eating toothpaste and slurring his speech, and yeah,
So good.
that's a really funny movie.
So many Michael Keatons. And Andy McDowell was like considered so hot back then.
Oh yeah, heck yeah. Michael Keaton is a legend. I mean, let's all agree to
He was
that.
Batman.
Yeah, he's Batman. He's Beetlejuice. He's Multiplicity. His greatest role, and I still to this day am not sure why he didn't get, some sort of Oscar for it, was the captain in Step Brothers. Okay, the police captain in Step Brothers,
Oh, yeah.
and he would periodically quote TLC. Don't go. That movie is absolutely outstanding. She touched my peppy Steve. Yep.
So good.
I wasn't gonna go there, but one of your listeners and followers did.
I mean, it is what it is. I didn't say it. I didn't say it, but yeah.
Oh, the guy I was referencing in not Step Brothers, but the other guys. It's the other guys.
Oh,
yeah. In the other guys, he's Captain Gene, and Will Ferrell wants to call him Gene. He's like, don't call me Gene. It's Captain Gene. It's Captain Gene. Call me Captain Gene. And he gives him a wood gun.
Yeah,
it's like, come on. He gives a wood gun and a whistle.
Dude. I know we sound like boomers, but our era was like, when's the last time like a good movie came out?
Yeah, a good movie like that, right? Like the other
like
guys.
A good movie. I'm not talking about like a big movie that they spent a lot of money on, but like a good movie.
I go on a golf trip every year with a bunch of.
They just make Kevin Hart movies. They just make Kevin Hart movies, and none of them are good. But he gets paid so much money. Where are the good, funny movies?
Yeah, the creativity is limited now in Hollywood. It's all gone CGI. Yeah. Oh man,
we're the era of like hilarious Jim Carrey movies.
Yeah,
like Ace Ventura, Cable Guy. I mean, come on, man.
Yeah, I mean the quotables from all of those movies are endless. Captain Gene. I'm going to be talking about Captain Gene all day. I'm telling you.
Yeah. Okay, guys, thearchpublic.com. I hit y'all with the multiplicity. I know. Go check it out. I know you said we sound like an infomercial, but maybe we want you guys to actually make some money. Provide a little bit of alpha here. Someone was like mad and said we were cringy because you don't trade. Oh, he said cringe. Don't trade Bitcoin. Own it. This is literally dollar cost averaging, so you own it. Just to be clear, you're not reselling it.
We're giving you we're giving you a tool that allows you to intelligently own more Bitcoin. Right? Instead of being tied to a price for the rest of your life because you put 10K in at 57 and change, there's going to be different levels by which you're scaling in at whatever time frame you choose. So yeah, this is a tool to do exactly that. We're not trading Bitcoin, we are acquiring Bitcoin. This is a version of
you want to own one Bitcoin or one Michael Keaton, or do you want 50 Bitcoins and 50 Michael Keatons? Or Michael Keatons. Yeah. They're telling me Jim Carrey's a meme actor, low IQ. He's one of the funniest human beings to ever walk the planet, and disparaging those movies is a
not on this show. Not on this show.
Not crime.
Okay. Yeah.
Bumblebee tuna.
Well, that's another. Listen, I have an enormous amount of movie quotes in my head. It's probably slightly embarrassing. Like I just said, not on this show, and the first thing I thought of was, the movie. I forget the name of it, where they're on a bachelor trip or something, and the police lady's like, not up in here, and then Rob Riggle goes, not up in here. I forget.
I remember that. Bachelor Party.
The Hangover.
The movie?
It's The Hangover.
The Hangover. Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah,
that was my first guess. When I was in high school, we had this thing. Okay, you can all leave now. We had this thing in Florida that was called Ledge. And so you actually went up to the Florida house, and for a weekend, like select students from each public high school in Florida got to go up there and be the legislators.
Yeah.
So I rolled up there. I wrote a bill on legalizing prostitution in Florida.
Nice.
I was a senior in high school. I presented it to the entire house, and it passed because we were a bunch of kids voting. They didn't let it go, but I was very convincing on the benefits of legalizing prostitution. I was 18. And then the last day, you have to, since it's parliamentary procedure, you have to like give a motion, and I second to close the thing. And I raised my hand and they called on me. They're asking me what year it was, 1994, 95. I raised my hand and they called on me. And I stood up on top of a table in the middle of the Florida House and Senate with all the actual House and senators in the ring and the kids downstairs, and did the path of the righteous man is beset on the Pulp Fiction speech. And I will strike down on the great vengeance and furious anger. Yeah. You will know my name is Lord when So, and I did that whole thing to I'm a movie.
If only, if only, so you were a young John Deaton. I get it. If only there were camera phones like we have them now back then.
Well, then I wouldn't. Well, yes, I don't have a job, so that's fine. But if we had camera phones back then, I would have never made it anywhere in life. The things
I can't imagine. In private, I cannot imagine. I can't imagine.
Nothing's in private anymore. All right, guys. Well, that's all we got for you today. Check out the Arch Public. That's fun. Check out the Arch Public. Maybe go watch Multiplicity or go on a Michael Keaton rampage if you don't want to sign up for the Arch Public. Just go binge. That's all we got. Follow AP_Abacus on X. And we will see you. Well, we'll see you next Tuesday. You'll be back next Tuesday. And otherwise, I will see the rest of you tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Andrew.
You got it.
That's dope.